in a 4-year career as opposed to Kobe White, who was there for 1 year. So you have to kind of juggle the two of them. To be different, I'm going with Kobe. I think that if he stays 4 years, he's probably in the conversation with Phil, with Marcus, with Joel, and of course Ty as the best point guard in Carolina history, because what he did in his first year was unbelievable, because he really overachieved. We knew he was this great scorer, but we figured, okay, maybe it was just because it was at the high school level. He wouldn't be able to come in and dominate quite that quickly at the college level. We had Nazir Little here too, so we thought, okay, the focus is going to be on him. That was not it at all. Kobe White was fantastic in his 1 year at Carolina, and I think if he has a 4-year career, we would have some serious arguments there. Because it's only a 1-year career, I feel like he'll probably get left out of the all-time great point guards talk whenever we go back and do it year in and year out. But ultimately, that's my pick here over Phil Ford. And then shooting guard, very easy. Look, if Michael Jordan didn't play in the state, there would be some conversation for guys like P.J. Hairston, the guy that still has his banner up in the Smith Center, but that Tar Heel fans are not ready to forgive, as we've learned this week. Very angry replies to our article about whether it's time to forgive one Rashad McCants. So, that would probably be the only. Those guys might have a little bit of a case. Same thing with Jerry Stackhouse, but unfortunately, you've got the greatest player of all time in the history of basketball at the position. So I got to go with Michael Jordan there. After that, it gets a little bit tough because I kind of had to figure out how I wanted to go with my 3 spot. I'm going to go with Donald Williams because he was a good enough shooter to where he could play the 3, but also had the size where he could rebound well and help us out on the glass. So I went with Donald Williams. Really tough decision to have him or Luke May, because I also feel like Luke could be an extremely big guy at the 3, because I just don't think that there's room for him anywhere else, and that kind of stinks because Luke is definitely deserving. But when you go inside at the 4, I would have Bob McAdoo, absolute stud. A guy that I just don't think gets talked about quite on the same level as guys like James Worthy and Michael Jordan, who came through the program, Phil Ford, who we talked about earlier, but is just an absolute dominant force. One of the greatest players to ever play at Carolina, and really set the precedent for, the amount of guys that we've seen come through there and have a ton of success. Really, really difficult to go with him over Antoine Jameson as well, because, if you guys went back and watched the Vinsanity Marathon that they had, Antoine Jameson was dominant in every single game. He was that good on the offensive end, ran the floor about as well as anybody. But unfortunately, I don't have him on my list because at center, I got to go with James Worthy. Just a completely different player. In my opinion, if Tyler Hansbrough doesn't play at Carolina, there is no doubt that James Worthy is the best center in program history. But because you got Hansbrough there, I think Worthy's right there at number 2, but another phenomenal player, a guy that definitely defines what Carolina is all about, and is a guy that would just be impossible to leave out of that 5 spot on my list.
Surprisingly, we got some differences. And I'll start at the point guard. I took Phil Ford for every reason why you said that he's probably the choice to go here. 4-year, career, accomplished so much and in his 4 years on campus. While Kobe White was great, and is more recent, and I didn't get to watch Phil Ford play. You can't argue with what he achieved. Arguably a top 3 player to ever play at Carolina. The only thing he was missing was a national championship. And so I took Phil Ford at point guard because there was really no wrong answer there. Shooting guard, there is only one answer, and that is one Michael Jordan. Best player to ever play the game of basketball. While that wasn't while he was at Carolina, you can't argue with what he did in the NBA with the Chicago Bulls, winning those 6 finals. So the backcourt, as you mentioned, was the easiest. So I'll take a Phil Ford and Michael Jordan combo. The front court is where I think there's tougher decisions because there's just loaded with talent. I'm going to take Antoine Jameson as my small forward. I'm going to put James Worthy as my power forward and make Brad Daugherty my center, and tell me how you're going to beat those guys on the interior, because there's just so much talent, so much length and skill and ability. And it's just, I mean, there's so many guys that you're looking at, the big guys to pick out of. Your guy Rusty Clark was up there. He got left off.
I was going to mention him, my guy Rusty.
Yeah, Brendan Haywood, who was a great college player, not on there. Bob McAdoo, as you said, was a good guy in college, and even better pro. Jerry Stackhouse, Rayshon Terry, I think doesn't get enough love because he wasn't a big part of those teams. Luke May, what he did his final 2 years on campus. Antoine Jameson, not making it. Kennedy Meeks, Isaiah Hicks, both guys, scored over 1,000 points and grabbed a numerous amounts of rebounds. So much that just couldn't make the list. But I ultimately went with James Worthy, Antoine Jameson, and Brad Daugherty to fill up my front court. And that's following Dre Bly's tweet, which I'm looking at right now as I've got the graphic pulled up. So great minds think alike there. This was a really fun exercise, really difficult because there hasn't been so much recent great talent coming out of the state that Carolina has gotten, just how much talent the Tar Heel State has produced, and that Carolina was able to keep at home. And so it'd be interesting if they ever did any other states that Carolina's had famous, recruiting ties to. But fun exercise, tough exercise, but this is what makes the offseason fun.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through some of the replies on there, my boy Bob McAdoo is just not getting the love. I might have to reconsider when we go into our underappreciated article, which there are a few guys that are on here that we will talk about on there, including one guy that is in my underappreciated starting five that is on this list. So I am extremely excited to do that one. But yeah, this one was exciting because, I mean, honestly, you could probably make the argument that you could literally go with 5 front court guys and they still couldn't beat you. I could probably put Antoine Jameson at my point guard and find a way to win with the amount of talent that there is here. And it's just amazing. It's one of the reasons why, I think we've seen Carolina stray away from it a little bit, but it's always great to bring in the in-state guys because there's always been a ton of success here. There's a reason that for so long the state of North Carolina was considered one of the top basketball states in the country, and even to this day is probably still considered to be up there. So great exercise, ton of great names, and definitely something that's fun. It's always fun to put together starting fives on here because that's probably the best chance that we're going to disagree with each other because we agree on a lot of stuff on this podcast. That's why we're bringing in Mark so he can disagree with us more and yell at us.
Yeah, and he isn't afraid to disagree. He disagreed with me a few times last night, which is why there's competition heating up as your potential replacement. Well, this was a lot of fun. We haven't done a podcast in almost a month, and I've missed coming on and talking Carolina basketball in general, and I've missed talking Carolina basketball with you. Before we get out of here, I'm gonna let you talk to the audience about the Heel Tough Blog website.
I also want to mention with the challenge, bring it on because I'm ready to go. But Heel Tough Blog website. Really, I mean, there's no challengers out there. Heel Tough Blog website is just something different for you guys because it's all our opinions. We do have, of course, news. We'll keep you updated on everything that's going on around COVID and all that kind of stuff. But we have all these great articles on there that we don't want you guys to miss. I mean, in terms of basketball, like we said, we've got an underappreciated podcast that's coming out here soon. But that's not where you guys go and head to the website and read the article where we kind of break it down a little more in depth than we'll even be able to do on the podcast. So we'll talk about the starting five that we think are underappreciated. I also sprinkle in a couple of guys in there that I think could have been in the running as well, and we're going to talk about a bunch of those guys on the podcast as well whenever we circle back around to that. But those are the types of things that you want to get when you go to the Heel Tough Blog website. And not only do we do that for basketball, we do it for football as well. I've done a couple of really good articles over the offseason that have gotten a lot of run. We did the Home and Home series, which is very popular. Teams would like to see the Tar Heels play in Home and Home series on the football field. And that's something that I think a lot of people would be really interested in reading. We, of course, love to hear your opinions as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's really great. Make sure that you guys head over there, HeelToughBlog.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we'll send you every article. Also, occasionally we put out some newsletters. If we've got a whole bunch of big-time stuff going on at one time, we'll usually send it out to make sure that you caught all of the news. And then, of course, you can follow us on social media where we put out all the articles as well as the podcast at Heel Tough Blog on Facebook and at Heel Tough Blog on Twitter as well. And, of course, you can follow us individually because we tweet out everything that goes on the website as well. Me, at HTB Anthony, and I'll let Josh tell you where you can follow him and let him tell you about the podcast as well, where you can subscribe to it.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Joshua Marlowe 5, and just give me a follow there, and you can find everything that goes on the website and on these podcasts. I tweet out on my individual account as well. And like Anthony said, as he got done telling you about the website, I'm going to encourage you guys to like and review the podcast. You can find us on every major podcasting platform, most notably Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora. We're there. Give us a like. Review me as the host. Review Anthony and Mark as the co-host. Most importantly, we encourage you guys to give us a follow. That way you get every episode in your podcast feed. Right now it's the offseason, so we're doing them kind of sparsely. But, assuming that we have a regular season as planned, there'll be podcasts for every game, previews, recaps, and, of course, every fun topic going on during the year. So give us a follow. That way you get every podcast in your feed. Well, with that, I want to thank Anthony for taking some time out of his ever-busy schedule to come on, talk a little Carolina basketball. We want to thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.